Well, the show is just around the corner, so I thought I'd do a video relating to that. Not just a normal show video where wear comfortable shoes and buy locally and do your research and that kind of stuff. There's plenty of those out there. Do stay till the end though, because there is a few things there that I think, you know, it doesn't hurt to go over again that may well protect you. So this one, I wanted to talk about pricing and the difference between one dealership pricing and another dealership pricing. Now, this isn't just to do with the show. You may well see this if you're out pricing around for different dealerships. If you're somewhere that's got 2 or 3 dealerships around you, then you may well go to one and then to another. And I'm going to talk about the disparity between one dealership's price and another dealership's price, because obviously you can shop around. And it's not just about caravans and motorhomes. This is kind of general as well. But this is with the caravans and motorhomes that I deal with, then this is kind of what I've seen certainly happen on numerous occasions. Now, when I've been to the show, sometimes I'll go there and I will speak to a customer and I will, get on with them well and spend an hour or so with them and then work out what product they want. And then I work out a price when we get down to talking about that, only for my head to drop when I see some, them reach into their pocket and get out a card from a certain number of other dealerships that I know will beat me by a significant amount of money. So I say, yeah, we can do it for this. And they said, well, I've been quoted £2,000 cheaper than you. Can you match the price? And it's frustrating because you spend an hour or so with someone and then that comes out. So I've kind of preempted that in the last few shows that I've done by saying, look, if it's all about price, I'm not going to be the cheapest. And then I try to get a gauge for if that is the case or not. So the reason for this is there's a couple of different business models. There's a couple of different reasons actually, but the main one is the business model. And that is, there's certain dealerships that will stack them high and sell them cheap and just kind of go for the volume. And then there's other dealerships, more like myself, which are smaller, which we will look to hold a bit more profit out of it, but then have fewer customers. So, I mean, this is the same with everything. It doesn't matter what you're buying. There are things that will, businesses will stack them up high and sell them cheap. And then there's the more discerning kind of business as well. So it doesn't take much of a stretch of imagination to work out which one you may well likely get a better after sales service from. Now, it's not a hard and fast rule. It's happened to me enough, and I've seen enough comments out there on my YouTube channel and on other forums and things like that for it to be a kind of a rule of thumb. Now, if you go for someone and it's just about the price and you're not worried about the service or anything like that, and that's fine. Or I've had customers come to me and say, look, I don't care about where you are. I don't care about anything else. I just want the cheapest thing possible, which is fine. I always say, look, I'm not going to be that. You need to go to someone else. Now, again, a slight rule of thumb is it's generally the big dealers that do this more than the smaller dealers, because they are about volume. They've got the infrastructure there, which I'll talk about in a second, to be able to deal with that volume of customers. They also have a bigger flow of new customers coming through, because they're generally in bigger areas that they've got more footfall and more chimney pots around them, so they can afford to not have the repeat custom that most of the smaller dealerships need to rely on. They can just keep washing through new customers by advertising these prices. So a lot of people go to the show thinking that this is the best place to go to get a bargain, which it is. Again, if you are just about the price, then you can get a dealership to give you a quote and then get a dealership to give you another quote, and then you can kind of play them off between each other. But again, that is a short-sighted view of what you're going to be doing, because unfortunately in these days you more than likely going to have to rely on the dealership for warranty and servicing and things like that, because other dealerships won't do your warranty, or very unlikely to do your warranty if you've bought it from someone else. And there's a video on why that is, which I'll link to at the other end of this video, to kind of give you a heads up on that. So if you go for the cheaper price, again, this is a rule of thumb. It's not a definitive rule, because I'm sure that if I said some dealerships, which I'm not going to do, you say, oh, I've had a great service off of them, or I've had a bad service off of them. So it is a bit of a rule of thumb. But with the stack them high and sell them cheap kind of scenario, it does kind of go along with also not being able to get in the workshop for 8 months if you have got an issue. And the reason for that is because the sheer number of people that they deal with, they will sell hundreds and hundreds of caravans and motorhomes, sometimes on a weekly basis, and trying to deal with the after flow of that, where you've got warranty issues and all this kind of thing. It's not that easy to do. So and also because of the recent years where the warranty likelihood is higher of coming into the workshop than it was years ago. So if you go for something that is just price driven, and it's a lot cheaper, then just be aware that you may well not get the service, because like I said, they're struggling to keep up with the numbers. The likelihood is on a smaller dealership they'll charge you a bit more, but you'll get a bit more of a continuity between who sold you the Caravan and the end product. So with bigger dealers, you'll be looking at the salesperson will sell you the Caravan, then you get handed over to a handover team, then you get handed over to a warranty team. So the person that sold you the Caravan is kind of up there, over there, and you're dealing with all these other guys down the chain. Now with the smaller dealerships, you're more than likely to have a much smaller team. So like in my case, if I sold you the Caravan, I would hand the Caravan over, and if there was a problem, you'd phone me. So if I told you something at the show, then that would be the case, because it'd be me that'd be handing it over, and I'll look like a numpty if I told you that this was coming with the Caravan and it didn't, because I'll be the one that told you that. Whereas some shows, bigger dealers will get salespeople in that don't actually work for them. And again, this doesn't happen that often, but I certainly have seen it where they'll say anything they need to get the deal, and then when you come to hand it over, they've long gone, and you say, well, where's that awning that you promised? And it wasn't written down, and things like that happen. So just be aware of who you're dealing with and what the structure is in the kind of the hierarchy of the company. I've had people even where I've spoken to them in the early on, and then they've gone away, and I saw them later. They said, "We bought that Caravan from you," and I said, "Well, no, you didn't." You go, "Well, yeah, we did," thinking that I was working with Swift or whatever manufacturer I was on, and they bought it from another dealer, and then didn't realise that they were buying it from somewhere else, and they didn't even realise where that dealership was. I've had that 2 or 3 times. And so just be aware who you're dealing with, and maybe ask the structure of what the next step is. So do I get handed over to a warranty team and all this kind of stuff a bit later down the line. Now, there can be other reasons why a dealership is selling the Caravans cheap. So you could find that out. So, I mean, normally we're a couple of £100 away from each other, something like that, which is neither here or there. That's, that's not a problem. But when there is a significant amount of difference between the two, I mean, I'm talking about Caravans now. So with motorhomes, if you're spending £80,000, £100,000, and they're £2,000 difference, and obviously that's not going to make much difference. That's the couple of £100 in the Caravan market. If they're £10,000 cheaper, then you kind of got to apply those same rules. But sometimes there are actual real reasons why a dealership would be giving away these Caravans. And essentially, every show we go to, I think this isn't going to happen again, but after every show, we all talk to each other and we say, oh, so and so was giving the things away, and you can't compete with that. But again, it depends on their business model, but also the stock that they've got. Now, I'm going to do another video on the market at the moment, because it has changed recently, and I think we are at the point where everyone is now safe. I think this time last year, and certainly at the October show, not the last one, the one before, where there was 2024 stock still left over, and a lot of 25 stock coming into the market where dealers have over-ordered. There was a lot of distress selling back at the last 2 shows. So they pretty much, a lot of people dealerships were giving them away and even losing money just to get them off the books. So you can still have that situation at this show, because a dealership would have put an order in July, or in before last year, with a kind of with not much of an indication of what the market is going to do. It's a bit of a kind of finger in the air guesswork kind of thing. And what can happen sometimes is if the market doesn't get off to a buoyant start, so we start selling in September, October, then you obviously got the October show, and that's where you do a good lump of your selling, and then you got November, December, when people are buying new, because they look to buy at that time of the year to get them around about the kind of the Easter time. If you're getting into February and say you've ordered 300 Caravans and you've only sold 50 and you've got 200 left, going into February, March, that can be a bit of a tricky situation. You think, well, I should have sold more than that in the first half of the year. So as you get into March, April, May, then that isn't the big selling time for a lot of new caravans, because then you'd be looking at getting it handed over in a couple of months after that, and then the season's gone. So there can be some situations where dealers have over-ordered. It might just be one or two models that they thought, well, that was going to go really well, and it hasn't. I've certainly been in a situation where you think, oh, this layout's flying this year, I'm going to order 2 or 3 extra because I could have sold some last year, and then for some reason that layout stopped selling, and then you got some left. So if you have got a disparity between one dealer that you want to deal with and one that's significantly cheaper, ask the dealer why they're selling at that price. If they just say, "Oh, yeah, we just want to do you a deal," then that you could maybe ask some questions. If they say, "Look, we've got 2 of these left, we want to move them on. It's just a case of getting it off the finance line because we've overstocked on whatever it happens to be." There may well be a bona fide reason why that is a lot cheaper, and then you'll be getting the advantage, because if that dealership is good, you'll be getting decent service, but it's helping them out by moving this product on and getting it off the forecourt and off the finance line. So there may be a good reason for it. So double check that. So again, with all these things, just be aware of it, and then just have a little think about what is going on here. Am I buying into a dealership that is just going to sell with Caravan and then not worry about the after sales and the warranty, which I've certainly seen again on the forums, and also in my YouTube channel comments. You see this quite a lot, and I've heard over the years. I've obviously heard this quite a lot. When I've asked, why do you want to deal with me? Why do you not want to deal with your local dealer? And then you get all that information. And over the past 20 odd years of doing shows, I've heard that a lot. So also, if you can, find out from either the salesperson or someone else, if there is an issue, what is the time scale of being in the workshop. Now, when you're buying a caravan, you're at the show, you're buying something new, you don't think about this kind of stuff because you don't think that there's going to be a problem with it. But like I said earlier, unfortunately, it's more often than not these days that you will be involved with a warranty claim and having something done. So it is important to find out, what is the workshop situation? Are you going to have to wait 8 months, or is it relatively straightforward to get something done? Because sometimes it could be significant and it's got to go back to the factory, and that's not their fault, I suppose. But if they can't get it in the workshop for 8 months and it's over the summer period and you want to use the caravan and you can't, then obviously that is an issue. So maybe dig a little bit deeper with the person that's selling you the caravan. If they are someone who works for that dealership and not someone they've been brought in, then they will know these things, and it doesn't hurt to just kind of find that out. Now, the other thing with the February show is it's a little bit different to the October show because there's more dealer stands. Some of the manufacturers aren't actually there, but they're supporting some of the bigger dealers because they got their own stand there, and they're there to try and move some of this stock on. So you can normally speak to the dealer principal, or at least someone's in charge. Whether it's not directly in charge of the workshop, it will be in charge of the whole thing, and obviously they will have a handle on what's going on. The other thing you can do there is get what's called social proof. Now, this has happened to me a few times, and I've always remembered it. It's quite a good thing to do. If the owner or the dealer principal or whoever's in charge is there, if you are thinking about buying a caravan off them, if you look them in the eye, give them a shake of the hand and say, look, I'm going to put the deposit down. You're going to look after me, aren't you? It's something called social proof. If they say it out loud, especially to you, to your face, then if you ever get into a situation where you have to reject the caravan, or you have to write a letter to them, or you've got to go for the warranty and you're not happy, the very fact that you did that and they spoke that thing out loud means that if they go against what they're saying, then they have to admit that they were lying, and that's not easy to do. So it's called social proof, and it's a very powerful thing. Whenever I've had someone that has done that to me, I always remember them, and every time something has happened, I always kind of go that little bit further with that customer. So just do that. If you can find the person that is in charge, it might well be the person you're dealing with, it might not be, just say, look, I'm putting my faith in you. Would you put your faith? Would you tell me that you're going to look after me? And then that does go a long way. A few other housekeeping things. I said I wasn't going to talk about this, but I think it is worth going over. Part exchanges. I've seen this on more than a few occasions where I've gone up against a deal and someone's part exchange has been overvalued. And so it looks like they're getting a better deal from another dealership. So it might not be the actual price of the product, but they're overvaluing your part exchange. And there's been several dealerships that I know where I'm fairly sure that when they take the Caravan there, it will be chipped, which means that they will find a problem with the Caravan. So say it's £2,000 above what the book price should be. They will then say, well, actually, we found some damp in it, or it wasn't what you described, and then for it will the cost of that will come down. And the problem is, if it's not a local dealer, it's someone you've travelled 300 miles to see, you're sat there with all your kit, waiting to get your new Caravan and perhaps go on holiday, and they're saying you've got to stump up another £2,000 or £3,000 because your van wasn't what you said it was. The likelihood is you're just going to stump that up, and then that could be something that could be a problem that you can't overcome. It's very difficult to walk away from that situation, say, no, I'm not doing that. I'll go home with my Caravan. Thank you very much. So that's why it is important to go local, because if it's 5 minutes down the road, it is easier to do. Also, if it is 5 minutes down the road, then you can take that van into the dealer and get a proper appraisal on it and get a definitive price. That's also a good thing to be able to do in between you actually signing the paperwork at the show and paying the deposit and then picking your Caravan up. You may well be able to say, look, I'll bring it in, have a look at it, make sure everything's okay, and then we can sort out any issues. If it does go wobbly at that point, then walking away from a deposit is a lot easier than being at the point where you've gone somewhere and you feel obliged to do it and spending that time and effort in doing it. So if you can take it in to get approved, that would be appraised. That would be a good thing to do. Also, don't leave the Caravan there or the motorhome. I think the days of dealerships going under have kind of gone. I think most dealerships are kind of washed through their 2026 and 27, 24, 25 models. And I think everyone's a bit safer now, because what's happened is the manufacturers have backed off their production, and also a lot of dealers that did go close to the wall, and I know several that did, are much more cautious. So they would have been ordering at the very bare minimum this year. They won't be over ordering stock. And so I think that I wouldn't expect to see dealerships going under. Now, it does completely depend on what's going behind closed doors, because you can be in a situation, where a dealership looks great and it's mismanaged, or something happens and it goes under. So there's certainly been a situation in the last few years where people have taken their Caravans in, and the problem with the business when it gets to the kind of the last embers of it is the management will start to put things on pre-owned finance lines, trying to get some bit of cash in to get the kind of the turnaround, the cash flow going. So you'll find that if you took your part exchange in, it'll either get sold early and they've got the money, or it'll get put on a finance line and then the finance house owns it and you don't. So if something does go bust and they've got your deposit, and which is bad enough, or they've got your product, your part exchange, which is even worse, then you can't just go and pick it up and off you go, which is difficult enough anyway. But if it's owned by the finance house, or if the cash is in the business and it's disappeared somewhere, then that's even worse. So just be wary about taking your part exchange in early and letting them do something with it, or even put it on the forecourt. It's probably not the best practice to do. Again, 9 times out of 10 it will be fine, and I've certainly done that here, and I've had sold Caravans before the actual new ones come in. But if there is anything wrong with that Caravan when you go and pick it up, it's then very difficult to undo that deal. It's much easier to say, look, give me a deposit back. I'm not happy with this Caravan. Give me my part exchange back, and off I go. But obviously, if it's not there or it's on a finance line, it's not that easy to do. Just be aware of that. Also, deposits. Use a credit card. It's a lot easier to get deposit back. Pay as least as you possibly can. If they ask for a £10,000 deposit on something that's in stock or they're on their finance line already, then just be aware of that. If it's a product that they wouldn't normally have in, or they're ordering it specially, that's slightly different because they want a bit more kind of financial security if something goes wrong with that, because it isn't something they'd normally have. And also some of the big motorhomes, you know, when you're talking big numbers, then they will ask for a bit more of a deposit so that they're not out of pocket. But you know, caravans wise, you know, up to £1,000, if it's on the finance line already and they've already committed to it, or in the production already, and it's going to be theirs, then £1,000 should do. And pay it on a credit card, because again, if something does go wrong and the business goes in administration, then you've got the credit card company behind you, and you're more likely to get it. Also, finance. A lot of people shy away from finance like it's an evil thing, but actually it gives you a massive amount of protection. It's not your product if it's on finance. It's the finance houses. So if you've got a problem and you have to reject it, and it's on the finance line, it's owned by a finance company, you've got the weight of them behind you, and you stop paying that, you say, I'm rejecting this. They will then go to the dealer and then they'll get their money back. And I've been on the other end of that, and you just can't fight it. It's impossible. So finance gives you a massive amount of protection, and it doesn't have to be the whole thing. You went half finance and paid a good cash deposit or something like that, then that would be okay. But again, pay something on a credit card. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be the full amount. It can be a small part of the deposit, but it doesn't matter. You've got that backup if you do use a credit card to pay some of the deposit. So I think that's it. Just to recap, you've got the two business models where you've got stack them high and sell them cheap, and unfortunately that can give the dealership an issue because they've got so many people to deal with, and then trying to get it for the workshop isn't straightforward. You've got the other model, which is they'll make a bit more money, but then they'll have less customers to deal with, and they'll give you a bit better service, and they rely on repeat custom and word of mouth rather than a turnaround of constant people coming in being attracted by the low cost of their products. So if it is just about money, and when you actually ask people that, there's not many people that say, yes, it's just about pounds and pence and I'm not worried about service. I kind of want the best of both worlds. And say, oh, no, I want it really cheap, but then I want really good service. So you can't, yeah, but you can have it both ways. Like I said, I want to reiterate that it doesn't always mean that you're going to have an issue when you buy something cheap, but the law of thumb is, you know, generally don't, if you know that is the case, and you pay £2,000 cheaper than someone else and you don't get the service, then you know it's kind of, you know, fair warned is fair armed, if you see what I mean. So there's that. Also, like I said, I think we're over the issue with people going under, dealerships going under, so I think you'll be safe there. And have a good show if you are going to the show, and just be wary of all these issues, and just do a little bit due diligence as well. So it doesn't hurt to just have a look at some of the Google reviews on different dealerships if you're thinking about dealing with them. Don't go for the bottom ones, because there's always an issue where it doesn't matter how good a dealership is, you're going to have quite a few people down the bottom there that have had an issue. It's generally the customers are a pain rather than the dealership. I've certainly been in a situation where I couldn't deal with the customer. It's just, you know, game over. Didn't matter what you did or said, it was that they weren't being reasonable. So go for the middle ones and have a look. What you can do is take all the this is what I do fairly often, is take all the reviews off of Google, chuck it in ChatGPT, and ask that what the overall view is, and it will kind of give you a balanced view of what the reviews are saying. And that's quite a good thing to do as well, quite good fun, seeing what it spits out the other end. So yeah, that's it. Like and subscribe. I'll be doing a video on the state of the market at the moment, and I think it has changed, but I think it's a lot more stable than we were 12 months ago, when we had the issues because of the lack of sales in 2024. So like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you very much.